Warning, incoming game over. Warning, incoming game over.
Hello, everybody. It has been a game. Started a little later than I thought any of us thought it would, but hey, I guess that means that my day didn't start with the Habs being the way they are. I have a guest here in Ian Boisvert. He is from Locked On Canadiens. Um, and we are ready to dig in because there's a lot to dig into, folks. Thank you to our chat. I'm already seeing a lot of people in there. So, as per always, we're super grateful. We're going to get started, but just really quickly before we do, I want to just remind you guys that we have Hyperdrive Hockey. And that's our kind of flagship show. We are talking to Max, staff, and Kev are going to be providing analysis and their opinions on news across the NHL. And you can learn more about Hyperdrive Hockey on www. I don't know why I told you guys that. You guys know www was first. Anyways, go on gameovernetwork.com. So, hello, Ian. I will let you speak now.
How are you, Kay?
I certainly am. How are you?
I also am. I also am. What a game, huh? I mean, just another, you know, really bad minute and a half that completely tanked a hockey game for this team. It seems like that
Yes.
is there's two things about this team that are incredibly reliable. One is that if they give up one goal, they'll give up nine immediately. And the second thing is that didn't happen in this game was if you take weak wrist shots from the blue line, they'll probably go in.
Yeah.
So I mean, one out of two things today hit. So
The reason why those didn't go in is because everything else was going in. So,
yeah, the Bruins didn't even try to shoot from
yeah.
that far out. 'Cause, I mean, when Primeau wasn't making a save, the Canadians were just letting the Bruins get to the slot on the ice, just with at ease. So
Yeah.
it's another really difficult game in a week that has been really up and down.
Yeah.
It seems like there's been positive progress in the process of this team,
Yep.
but negative results, especially the last two games.
Hmm.
Um, so definitely they find themselves in a very weird spot at the end of a week with two sets of back-to-backs and headed into a month of December that has a bit of a lighter schedule.
Yeah.
So hopefully the Canadians can recover from this one quickly.
I hope so too. So we just chatted a little bit before we got on, and I think Ian and I have a little bit of a different view on this game. I think I'm a little bit more positive on it than he is, mostly because my expectations are so low, and I think I'm honestly just glad that I was expecting a lot worse for a back to back. But let's talk about one thing that wasn't on a back to back. Let's talk about someone who did not play yesterday, but did play today. And I hate to talk about it, but we got to talk Primeau.
Yeah. Does it sort of feels like this is the end of the line, huh? Like that's
Yeah,
sort of the vibe that I've been getting from folks on Blue Sky and elsewhere is
yeah.
we're all just kind of done with this this Caden Primo experiment. Is that sort of where you're at?
Yeah, I don't know. I think so I've been on Locked On Canadians. Great podcast, everybody. I'm not biased at all. Uh, but I've been on Locked On Canadians and we talked a little bit about this. We talked about this before on this podcast. My kind of stance on it has always been that it's just a backup goalie. It can't be important enough to worry about as much as we worry about it. And I think the more games Caden Primo plays, the more he shows me that it is a problem. Um, I am, like you said, reaching the end of my rope. At this point, I think a lot of people don't really think that he's going to be claimed if he's on waivers. I know you've been of the opinion that he would be by the Flyers.
I have changed my attitude on that. If you
But
put in a
even
claim on
yeah,
Caden Primo at this point, you are
I think we lost Ian for
a
a
team
second.
should. We're good.
Yes, we're good now. Yes.
Yeah.
I think we lost Ian for
Thing
another
for hockey
second.
team to do.
So I'm just gonna talk until he's back. Um, yeah, I think that like I was just really, really I was really bullheaded about this, that like it just didn't need to change. There's nothing worth changing here. Um, and I'm not there anymore. Ian, you're back. Would you
Yeah.
like to continue your words about the Flyers organization?
Yeah, if they can't put a claim in on Primo at this like it.
Okay. Um, Ian, you keep disconnecting, so let's just work through this as a team. Um, yeah, I think that like my concern has been I don't want Laval to lose its backup with calling up Connor Hughes, but to me it's not an option. It's a non-option. Sorry. And I think somebody in the chat I'm so sorry, I can't say your username, ZSSIK. They said the most damning thing for Primo is that the team's body language after bad goals are going in. And I gotta agree. Um, I'm not sure that this team trusts Primo whatsoever. I know after what the third goal, they seemed terrified of even letting a goal get to the net. I was seeing a lot of scrambling, um, and I guess that could be attributed to them not wanting to give up another goal. Uh, but it also has something to say about I don't think they trust Primo to recover.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think, the earlier when the thought was, at least from the two of us, that it's not really worth all of this movement to get a different backup in here because the team's not playing all that well anyway. Who cares? The team has taken some positive steps forward in the way that they play in front of their goaltender. And now their goaltender is the reason that they're sort of being sunk. So it's
Yeah.
sort of flipped on its head. It went from, well, the team's garbage, so it doesn't matter who's in net. And now it's the team isn't, they're definitely not lighting the world on fire, but they're better than they were. And Caden
Yeah.
Primo's still what we saw he was earlier. So it's just,
Mhm.
we're kind of stuck now.
Mhm.
I don't know if you've done some looking around the league at, at what goalies might be available, but there's really not much. It's going to be
I
difficult to
have
get a
because
veteran
I
presence
watch a
in there.
lot of the Avs, as you know. So I have been keeping a close eye on the
Right.
goalie market, and it is not good.
Yeah, the one place that might be an opportunity to strike is Vancouver. They should be getting Thatcher Demko back. They have Kevin Lankinen and Arthur Seelovs there. One of those guys is going to be expendable once Demko comes back.
Yeah.
It sort of depends on what Vancouver wants to do. So
Mhm.
that's the one place I looked where there might be a sure option coming up. But again, like they know Montreal would need something. They'd be trading from a position of strength. Is it
Yeah.
worth giving up medium draft capital to get a backup goalie at this stage of this team's rebuild? I don't know, right? Like that's the conversation we're gonna have to start having soon, I think.
Yeah, because to me, I think there was no question anymore if Primo was going to be the goaltender of the future. I think that was like at this point pretty clearly a no, you know? But I did hope that this would be a goalie who could get us through these sparse times until the few really promising goalie prospects in our system were able to make it there. You know, with Dobesh, I would like to obviously let him cook, you know. That's important. Do not even think about Fowler, which I don't even think he would. He was at the game today, by the way.
Yeah, he
Jacob
was.
Fowler. And I was
Yeah,
like, welcome to
apparently
House
there's
Hockey,
some thoughts
buddy.
that yeah, there are some thoughts that the Canadians are trying to get him out of the NCAA sooner rather than later, which I would hate because the last goalie we did that with was a guy, I don't know if you've heard of him. His name's Caden Primo. That didn't work. Like
Yeah,
these goal, yeah, just because he's playing well doesn't mean it's time for him to come out. Like he's
yeah,
20 years old. He needs
yeah.
to sit. I like. Okay, so he's coming out. Is he coming right to the Canadians or is he going to Laval, where there's already two options? I'd be
Mhm.
okay with him in Laval next year, but the temptation for the Canadians to call him up would probably be too high.
Yeah.
So I just don't know that's where this team should go at this point in time. But it's frustrating watching Caden Primeau not be solely responsible for losses. There's 22
Yeah.
guys that touch the ice every night,
Mm-hmm.
or 21, I should say. It's not fair to be like it's all on him,
Yeah.
right? Like yes, he gave up some bad goals, but at the end of the day, like it's more of a mentality thing, a psyche thing for this team. They need somebody that they feel confident can stop the puck. They feel like that when Montembeau's in net, even though he's been shelled a couple times.
Yeah.
That like it feels like when Montembeau gets a shot from anywhere, you don't think, oh, this puck's going in. Primo's the exact opposite. Like there's
Yeah.
no confidence that he can make any kind of save.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, to me, MFM and paradiggity, really fun to say out loud, by the way. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to say that paradiggity. MFM said that it's not Primo's fault that the previous admin completely fumbled his development, but he
Yeah.
hurts us more than not in the moment. It's sad. And I think that's a pretty good summary of it. It's sad. I hate to see this happen. But at this point, I think that I feel bad for him, but this is just not helping the team. This team already struggles with kind of I was gonna say mental stability, but that makes it seem a lot weirder.
Yeah.
Confidence, I guess, is the word I'm looking
Yeah.
for. There's just a lot of youth on this team, and I think the confidence can be an issue. We've seen that happen before, compounding goals, etc., etc. And I think a goalie that you cannot trust does not help. Um, and like you said, I do absolutely want to let Fowler cook. That's not even a conversation to me, frankly. I just don't consider it an option. Um, but I guess that's the question is, are you willing to give something up at this point to get someone who isn't Primo? And the answer to me is yes, obviously depending. I don't want to give up anything, like a bunch for him, but
Yeah.
I think you got to give something. And you got to remember Monty was a waiver wire pickup, so it's not like you can take a chance on a goalie, I think. Cuz you kind of know what
Yeah.
Primo is right now.
You absolutely know what Primo is. Like the last year we got a glimpse of it. It was in the three goalie system. And I was a big, proponent of this when folks were saying, oh, we should have kept Jake Allen. Last year, all of the information pointed to Jake Allen was the third best goalie on the Montreal Canadiens. All of the numbers pointed in that direction. So
Mhm.
the Canadiens, I think, at the time made the right choice. It did
Mhm.
not pan out the way that they wanted it to. The good thing is they didn't give Caden Primo an 8-year contract. They didn't give Sam Montembeau an 8-year contract. They are not anchoring themselves to any one goalie.
Yeah.
So that position, other than Montembeau for the time being, is going to remain fluid. They're going to
Mhm.
have to find some options. And the good thing is we know Kent Hughes is able to pull off trades like this. The first season
Yeah.
he was here, he acquired Andrew Hammond for
Mhm.
an AHL grinder. I can't remember his name off
It's
the
a
top of my head.
hamburger, but yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. So like we know that that's something that matters to him. After a while of watching this team give up too many goals and not have any stability in net, to be able to say, okay, I need to do something. And that season
Mhm.
was a lost cause anyway. Like we knew
Mhm.
we were trying to be as bad as possible that season.
Yeah.
So for him to do it that year at least makes me think that it's a possibility for this year.
Yeah.
And the other part of this too is that I think, the waiver rules are in place to keep NHL teams from just stockpiling players and keeping them in the American Hockey League where they get paid way
Mhm.
less. I think that matters a great deal to Caden Primo, but I think Caden Primo would also welcome the opportunity to go down to Laval and try to find his game behind a, relative to their league, better hockey team, right? The
Mhm.
Laval Rocket are one of the AHL's better teams. They're struggling over the last little bit, but
Mhm.
that seems like it would be a good opportunity for Caden Primo to go down, find his game, and then come back up.
Yeah.
The problem
Yeah.
is they don't really have the option there would be like calling up Dobesh, and we don't know like what that looks like. So
Mhm.
it's really challenging. They find themselves in a difficult spot. The saving grace, like I said, though, is that they have flexibility. They have not glued themselves to any one player. So I sort of wonder like what they can offer as trade bait. Could Michael Pezzetta be of interest to a team who has too many goalies? You
Mhm.
know, trading a 13th forward for a third goalie. Maybe that's an option out there. I
Yeah.
don't know. I don't know if Vancouver would be interested in that. I don't know what that market looks like, but Kent Hughes is probably looking at it. I can't imagine that he's totally thrilled with the way that this season has
Yeah.
gone for Caden Primo.
I think you can forgive problems that are you can see improving. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
I don't think like the front office is thrilled with how the start of the season went, but there has been improvement. And because of that, I think like there's a light. I think that like with the backup position, you just don't have any stability. Again, that's the word I keep using because it's the word that I think describes the situation the best.
Yeah.
Um, here's the thing. We know Primeau is good in the AHL. We've seen him. This is a cycle we've been through back
Yeah.
when he didn't have to clear waivers. This was a thing they'd do. They'd call him up. He wouldn't do great. They'd send him back down. Right? Like it was just it was just the way
Yeah.
it was. And I think like at this point, it's just because I'm seeing some people in the chat suggest that you'll send him down if he gets claimed, he gets claimed. And I understand the feeling, but you have to remember we need to leave the AHL with also a serviceable backup. Um, we can't carry Price Dobesh. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We can't carry Price Monty either, which like it feels like is the only option right now. So this goalie conversation is just so frustrating because I don't think the answer's in the organization
No, I at
as
least
of right
right
now.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah, right now, like if they wanted to make a change in net for Tuesday, they don't have that option. It's not there. Like that would have to be an external decision. And I just don't know what their appetite is as far as like what they'd be willing to give up. I don't know if they think any of the options out there are better than what they currently have.
Hmm.
So it's a shame. It's a shame that the Canadiens, you know, when they traded Jake Allen, they set Caden Primo up for this opportunity, and he has done nothing but fumble the bag. Like
Yeah.
they talked about it at the beginning of the season, not wanting to make room for players, just to have room for them, like Elaine Hudson or Logan Mayu or some of the younger players who are on their way up. They need to force their way in. Primo kind of forced his way in last season, and then they made the move they did, and they didn't acquire another goalie this offseason, and they said, okay, you're the backup. And just how very clearly it hasn't worked out is it's disappointing because they looked at the track record from last year for this player and decided, okay, that's good. We're gonna run with this.
Yeah.
And he's unfortunately let them down. So
Yeah.
it's important to them. It should be important to them, I think, to find another option.
Well, first of all, bye, Claire. I just noticed in the chat. Second of all, Trinka is saying, I feel like this is a good point to pull out. This is a good time to pull out the Marc Bergevin short-sighted. No, which I think is like the Primo story. I don't think it's like useful to go over it again because we've all talked about this. I'm seeing Nicholas in the chat. Nicholas, say why so much time on Primo, and I understand because there are other issues to get through, and trust me, we will get to them. Don't worry about it. We're not forgetting. But it starts with Primo. It starts with Primo. What is it? It feels like 5 minutes that like the three goals happen. It's
Yeah.
something like that just doesn't give you a chance anymore. And
No.
that's why I think talking about Primo is worth it, especially because I do want to put it on the record that my position on this has changed because I was of the position that you just let this play out. And like I said, I don't think that's an option anymore. I think this is actively bad for the players on this team. But the players on this team don't exactly need help being bad sometimes. So let's
Yeah.
talk a little bit more about that. I'm just going to get us started on the second period so we can talk about some of the players that we need to talk about. Um, so Thoughts? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, the other it's and I think I messaged you this during the game. It seems like a lot of uh the players who draw the ire of of the fan base all decided in this one game that they were going to try to be the one that was hated the most. And
Yeah.
it was a dead heat for a while between Caden Primo and Mike Matheson. Um, the Mike Matheson file is interesting to me because everyone is running this guy out of town. And
Yeah.
I think games like the one against Boston are evidence to me why you can't. Because when he
Mhm.
has a bad game, you see how important it is to the lineup. Because okay, let you traded Mike Matheson.
Yeah.
Who's playing those minutes? He played 20 minutes tonight.
Mhm.
He played 20 minutes. He plays power play one. I know people will say put Hudson on power play one. They've done that for a little bit. It hasn't really worked all that well. Granted, maybe give him more time, but like the role Mac Matheson occupies in this lineup is so difficult to replace unless you're getting somebody back from Mike Matheson that
Mhm.
is like Mike Matheson. And wouldn't it just be easier to live with the one you have? I
Mhm.
don't like the reason why his mistakes are so costly is because we need
He's
him
so
to not
important.
make them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's why. I mean the one the shorthanded goal that Charlie McAvoy scored. I don't know what Mike Matheson was thinking. I think the only thought process that he had was I'm gonna pass it back to the middle of the point because that's usually where I am, so I'll be there to get it. Like that was like how that play unfolded, and he's just sent Charlie McAvoy on his merry way down all
Mhm.
the way down the ice for a breakaway.
Red carpet.
It's just yeah, like that's the thing with Mike Matheson. There was later they were shorthanded, and they came in on a rush. And he had the puck on the wall, and on the rush, he just decided, I don't have a play. I'm going to rim it around the boards. And he just gave the Bruins the outlet.
Yeah.
Like
I saw that too.
these are
Yep.
decisions. These are decisions that like I find it difficult to justify. And I like Mike Matheson. Like I
Yeah.
don't want this to come off as I hate this player. If you've listened to Locked On Canadians, you know Laura and I are
Mike Matheson
defenders of Mike
defenders.
Matheson.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, we are always in his corner. And games like tonight are kind of why, because he's
Yeah.
so important to this team. I don't know, do you feel the same way, or am I being too kind to this guy that since he got here has been nothing but the center of sort of ridicule from Canadians fans?
Well, first, Ian, I think I asked you about time on ice for defensemen. What's kind of I don't need to know the exact timing, but what's the ranking?
Yeah.
20 is low for Matheson.
Matheson was third on the team. Hudson was first. Gooley second. Matheson third. Savard fourth, Struble fifth, Xhekaj sixth. Xhekaj, of course, had that 10-minute
But
penalty,
yeah,
so that
yeah,
kept him off the ice for some time. Even though I think he's played pretty well lately, I've really
I think
liked
so too.
Xhekaj's game.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, that's sort of it. It seems like they tried to keep Matheson off the ice a little bit more in this one,
Hmm.
which
Hmm.
seems pointed.
Yeah. So my kind of feelings on Matheson are I am also a Matheson defender. Um, I think honestly, I feel bad because it seems Kirby Duck is the only exception to this, but I tend to be a defender when people get really harsh on players.
Mhm.
Because it just makes me feel bad and I'm sensitive. But also I think at this point it is justified because, like you said, Mike Matheson wasn't clicking. I think you had Primo doing Primo things. On top of
Mhm.
that, you had Mike Matheson playing at his worst, I would say. Not his worst, but you know what I mean, on the bottom scale of his
Yeah.
what we've seen from him. And I think that really just shows you is how much of I would say, and I still believe this until, this is something that, yeah, I'm gonna get my Caden Gooley mention in. Before Matheson was, really playing those high minutes, that was something I genuinely believe that, like, when Caden Gooley wasn't having a good game, this team wouldn't have a good game,
Yeah.
generally. Because that's a lot of minutes. That's a guy who's playing against top players, like the top pairing. And I think that's true for Matheson too. Now, this is also something we talked about during the game. We were just so annoyed that we were messaging each other, and something we said was, it seems like when Matheson has bad games, it is bad.
Yeah.
This is a high ceiling, low floor player. Um, and I think that's also part of what makes him such a target for people who are not happy is when it's bad, it's real bad. Um, but what did you think
Yeah.
about the pairing, the Hudson Matheson pairing?
I thought it worked the one time they did it a while ago where we all kind of looked at it and went, there's no way this will work. And of course,
Yeah.
that's the game where it worked. But it doesn't seem to really be working anymore. And again, like there's a trickle down effect of players on this team that have not panned out the way we want them to. Things would be a lot easier for the Montreal Canadiens right now if they could trust Justin Barron on a nightly basis. Because right now they had one right-handed shot in the lineup on
Ooh,
defense.
Ian, we are gonna fight about this.
I regardless of how you think Justin Barron is playing, the Canadians do not think
Don't
they can
trust him.
trust him.
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
Like I don't
That's fair.
I didn't think I thought he was okay against the Rangers. I didn't think he was all that bad. The
Mm.
game before that, that one was a little rough. But
I
the
give him
the,
grace
the
for
Ranger
that one
game,
because it was a long time coming. It was a long
yeah,
rest between. Yeah.
yeah. I just think like if Barron has taken that step forward that he really needed to take this year, we're having a completely different conversation, not only about him, the entire defensive unit.
Mm,
Because we're not talking about, Matheson or Gooley playing on the wrong side every night.
mhm,
Maybe they do it in odd situations, but it's not every night.
mhm.
Right now, the only left-handed or pairing that has the guys in the right spots was Xhekaj and Savard, and
Yeah,
that's been the case for a while.
yeah,
So it's difficult. Caden Gooley hates playing the right side. He says it. He
yeah,
he he says that he's very happy when he comes in and he sees his number up on the
yeah.
whiteboard on the left side of the defensive structure. He
Mhm.
has a hard time with it. These guys really don't like it. They're not
Yeah,
going to do it to Lane Hudson right now either.
yeah.
So it's got to
No,
be
of course
Gooley or
not.
Matheson, and they really have a hard time with it.
And like to me, I know Cooley's like said he's like I'm trying on the right. I've trained for it over the summer, but the truth of the matter is I believe my eyes. You know, like I saw that when he was playing on the left and he played on the left for a few games in a row, that's when we were seeing beginning of the season Kane Gooley. That's
Yeah.
when we were seeing him at his best. And I think that's just it makes sense. A guy played one position, one side for most of his life, and you suddenly are asking him to do something else. It's hard. Um,
Yeah.
but I think that I think you need to save Matheson from Hudson, and you need to save Hudson from Matheson. I think they both enable each other's worst kind of tendencies.
Yeah.
I don't think either of them are. I really liked Gooley and Hudson, even with Gooley being on his wrong side. I found it worked.
Yeah.
So I didn't mind that as much. I think it has because again, not to get like sidetracked by Caden Gooley, but of course I will. I thought he was really active offensively for the first half of the game, I'd say.
Mhm.
Um, so that's kind of what I'd bring up if somebody, says he's strictly defensive. I don't think that's true. I think that's somebody who doesn't really watch the Habs a lot who would say that. But yeah, it's not like he's completely dead offensively, but I do feel like he knows how to he just doesn't have the same like tendencies that have you ever like met someone who's so much like you that you do not like them? Like you clash
Yeah.
with them because you're like, I want to be that. Why are you
Yeah.
that? And I think like obviously it's not that they don't like each other. I think it's just kind of like that for Hudson and Matheson. It worked one game, like you said, but every other time we've seen it, it has not worked.
Yeah. And I think the pairings that Gooley has been on has limited his offensive capacity because if he's with Mike Matheson, who's the steady defenseman on that pairing? It's him. It's Gooley.
Which is so
When
funny.
he's with when he's with Lane Hudson, who's the
Yeah.
steady defensive defenseman? It's Caden Gooley, right? Like that's that. The problem with Hudson Matheson is that they don't have one of those, and both of those guys want to fly up the ice at any given moment. So when they both do that, they're going to get themselves into trouble because they don't know who's supposed to be covering, who's supposed to be back. I thought Hudson had a bad game. I thought he struggled.
One of his
It's
actually
okay.
real bad games to me, yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, again, totally okay. He's 20 years old. He has played what was that, 27 or 26 hockey games in the NHL now. It's okay. We're allowed to say it's okay that he had a bad game because he did. He struggled. I think the Bruins really keyed in on him, which is, again, another when they played the Penguins earlier this season, the Penguins said that they had a game plan for Lane Hudson, this kid who just got here, who looks like a literal child. They're game planning for him, right? Like, it's important to keep all of this in context, not just say he had a bad game, he's trash. Like, he's 20. He's playing really well for a 20-year-old. He's leading rookie defenseman in scoring. He'll be fine. But he did have a rough game. I just think that those pairs don't work.
Yeah.
And I don't know what changes there because they called up Logan Mailloux because they needed a body. It did not work. He was not ready. And I don't think he'll be ready for a while until he figures out how to play in his own defensive zone. He really struggles with that.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe you call up Engstrom. Left-handed shot. Doesn't really help you. Doesn't really help with any of the issues that you have. So, like, they're kind of... I'm not saying they're punting on this until next season, but, like, what other options do they have? They don't really have, unless, like, Jaden Struble suddenly learns how to play right-handed. Like, I just don't know that that's something that's going to, I don't think there's an easy fix there.
Yeah, to me, it's shit, I was going somewhere with this. To me, it's like, when you have Matheson is important to this team's offensive strategy. That's one of those words, by the way, that, like, for some reason just gets me. I'm like, offensive, offensive. Anyways, their strategy in creating offense. And Hudson also does similar things. So I think when you put them on the same pairing too, it's like, I wonder if it's just a little easier for the opposing team too to just shut that down. Just because it's like two guys on the ice at the same time. To say something positive about the defensive pairings, I think Arber Xhekaj is having the best stretch of hockey and good boy behavior that I have seen in him for an extended period of time. How do you feel about Arber Xhekaj?
Really, really good. I'm so glad you pointed out the good boy behavior thing because he has been very contained. Going back to the Ranger game when he hit Lafreniere and Sam Carrick tried to jump him, and he's like, "I'm not fighting you. There's no reason for me to fight you. Your guy moved out of the way when I tried to hit him." What I thought was interesting in this one, I don't know if they caught it on the Sportsnet broadcast, but they did on the awful, terrible, no good, very bad broadcast I had to watch, which was the Nesson broadcast. They after the empty net goal, they showed a shot along the Canadiens bench, and Arber Xhekaj was getting on the ice, and you can see Stefan Robida grabbed him by the shoulder and was pointing at him. As if, I don't know what he was saying, but it very much looked like, if you start something, you're in trouble. And he didn't. He went out there.
You're grounded.
He got a stern talking to from defense dad. So it's just like, but I totally agree. Like, the play that he set up for the Caufield goal, I could not believe that was him. I saw him coming in. I'm like, "Ooh, is that Struble? No, that's Arber Xhekaj." Like, that was an incredible play by him. I hope we see more stuff from him like that. Like, pick your spots, find good lanes to take. But I've really enjoyed his game. He's steady. He's mean. He hasn't changed who he is at his core. He's still Arber Xhekaj. He's still going to be that monster teams hate to play against. But he's gotten rid of a lot of the dumb stuff. And it's funny saying that in a game where he got a 10-minute misconduct, right? Like, it's funny that we think that, because at least in that one, it was even, right? They each got 2 and a 10. Okay, that's fine. You didn't hurt anybody. It's not like the preseason Arber Xhekaj where he was just getting run out of every game.
Yeah, I was scared about that one because I thought we were seeing that again this season. I was like, you've already been grounded once, aka be sent to Laval. Like, do you really want to do that again? Do you want to start the season with your friends, or do you want to start them with your brother? Who do you want? Who do you want to hang out with? Arber.
The choice is up to you, Arber. You get to make this decision. Yeah, some real tough love from his parents. Yeah, I like that. He's been great. I've really liked him.
He's been great. I'm so happy with this game. I'm so happy with his self-control. I think that like, people will say that like a third pairing, third pairing, uh, is like, it's just whatever. But I do think it matters because uh, if you can't trust your third pairing, and Mark said this on the last podcast, but if you can't trust your third, you're playing your second way more, and then you're playing your
Yep.
first way more. So it's important especially for a team who puts a lot of minutes on like across three different defensemen, which like that's better than it used to be because it would be two different defensemen who were getting those minutes spread out, and like poor David
Right.
Savard, who just does not have the legs for it. Uh, so at least that's an improvement. We're not seeing as much of David Savard. Um, so I'm glad because I could tell that like why am I missing who I'm so brain foggy today, guys. I'm sorry about that. I was like, who are we playing? Oh, it's the Bruins.
Right.
The
Yeah.
Bruins were like a lot more physical than I thought they would be, honestly. Because in the last little while, we've seen like a dead fish Bruins team. They're not like the big bad Bruins that they used to be. They still aren't. Even
Yeah.
after this game, I don't think that. But they started off really physical, and I was concerned because I was like, they're wearing these guys down. They're on a back to back. So I was just concerned about that. But to say something positive, I was really, really glad that like Ian said, and I would agree that like their third period was their best period, and I completely agree with that, which is not something you'd expect from a team that's back to back and who has shown in the past that like yes they can play well on a back to back, but they are also it feels a lot like they're toddlers sometimes, and you just don't know what you're getting in terms of if they're going to keep up the energy or if they're about to throw a tantrum. Um, I so how did you feel about the fight of this team? Because for once, I sincerely felt like they had a chance of coming back when they were down like even 4-1. I was like, there's a chance.
Yeah. I thought the goal right off the start of the third period kind of crushed
It was
them.
rough. Yeah.
I thought that would honestly be the end of it, but then they rattled off. They got two more, and it sort of was like, okay, maybe they were down by two at one point, right? Like that's not insurmountable.
Mhm.
But yeah, I do think that I just think that it's those moments where they kind of get whacked on their nose, like the when they give up three goals in a minute and change, like that's
Mhm.
they get bopped on their nose, and it's sort of
Mhm.
they can't really recover.
Mhm.
I thought Marty should have called timeout after the second goal
Yeah.
because they gave up two in pretty quick succession, and I was thinking this is going to snowball. You have an opportunity to put an end to this,
Mhm.
and he didn't. And they gave up a third goal immediately after, and then he calls timeout. But at that point, it's like you're down 3-0. Like that's
Yeah.
there's
Hey, it was an
for just from
improvement.
a
At least he called
yeah.
it.
At least he called it, and it puts and it at least gives us proof of concept that this is something he's thinking about. Right? It's not, I'm never calling timeout in that situation. I don't believe in that. He very clearly believes in it. He just doesn't believe that the team is as bad as they are. And that,
Mhm.
well, they're down two. I don't need to call it right now. Then they go down three, and it's like, I absolutely need to call it now. And he
Yeah.
was angry. Like you could see he was
He
yelling at him
he was
during that timeout.
yelling. Yeah. It did not seem like
So
he was talking strategy. It seemed more like he was just like, "Guys, get it together."
I would be fine if he called the timeout and brought them over there to just stand on top out by the side of the bench and don't even say anything.
Yeah.
Just give them a second to breathe.
Mhm.
They especially that second goal, it was just the most breakdown of breakdowns that's ever happened. Everybody on the ice lost their guy.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it's not even that they went down 2-0, it's how they did it.
Mhm.
Like we saw everybody failed their assignment. It was just
Mhm.
like if you call it now, call timeout, give us a breather, maybe things turn out differently. There's obviously no guarantee that it would have, but like we'll never know. I'm just
Yeah.
glad he didn't keep it in his pocket until the end of the game. Because what if we're close and I need to call a timeout to draw up a perfect play at the end? That's the thing that bothers me the most.
Yeah. Let's try to talk a little bit more about the positives. I'm not sure if we will stick to that, but let's try. I'm gonna move us over to the third period. Um, I just want to remind everybody, please, like the stream, And please subscribe if you aren't subscribed. We are an independent network. We're doing our best to get up off the ground. It's our first year. It's really important to us to be able to have this network. I actually, to get a little vulnerable for a second, I've never done anything like this before. I'd never like talked on camera. I'd never like done any like kind of sports anything really. Um, Even though I was familiar with like multimedia stuff, but I would have never tried this if it wasn't for someone like Andrew, who I know encouraged, new voices, people who wouldn't necessarily get voices in this space. Um, and you know what? I feel pretty happy about this. Like I'm feeling good about this. And you guys in the chat are such a big part of it. Honestly, you guys are so supportive. And I feel like I'm getting better and better every single stream. So I would have never gotten that opportunity if it wasn't for Game Over and Game Over's kind of commitment to, giving us something outside the big kind of, few that we have that keep getting sold out. People get fired. So obviously we'd love your support. All that to say, we'd love your support. If you could like the video, share with a friend. Honestly, you can even say something a little bit mean in the comments if you want, as long as you say it. Yeah, so we also have shows obviously for all other Canadian markets. If you're interested in that, you can also find the link on gameovernetwork.com. And I am going to stop talking about that now. So let's talk positives. And I really liked Nick Suzuki in the third. How did you feel?
Nick Suzuki and Cole Caufield are all the way back.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I've taken out of this weekend is that against the Rangers, a goal and an assist each. Against the Bruins, 2 goals for Caufield, 2 assists for Suzuki.
They're back.
They're back.
Yeah.
Which is really, really great for this team. Now, the fun part becomes, where are they putting Patty Laine when he comes back?
So fun.
Because I would love to see him on that line. I know it's going to be very difficult to do that, considering he hasn't played professional hockey in a regular season setting in a year.
Yeah.
But the way that Caufield and Suzuki are going right now, I feel like you got to give them another weapon, and that line will be incredible. It's already very good, but I feel like it could be really, really good.
See, the one thing I would miss then is I call this the learning to count line because it's 13, 14, 15.
Yeah.
So
I've also
that's
liked
fun.
that.
I'd miss that, but if you guys don't know, Ian's a big line A guy. And he's after many years of wanting him, we finally got him this summer. Which, I was also very excited about. So I'm glad to be able to have the chance to get him back. Seems like there was a chance he might be back today, but seems like Tuesday will be his fingers crossed, knocked on wood, etc., don't break a mirror, etc. Hopefully he'll be back, and I'm excited for that. I'm really liking what Newhook is doing on that first line. I do think he is the weakest of all three on that line, which I expected. If you look at the players, just even in a vacuum, that's what you'd expect. But I think he's doing his job. We saw him draw players towards him a lot and kind of give Nick and Cole some time to work, some space to work. But if you have a better option, you gotta go for it. We saw that, like, who did they try a little while ago? I think they put Slav before they demoted him. It's Kirby. They had Kirby up there.
Yep.
And we saw that wasn't working. We had Slav up there who just wasn't able to capture the magic that he had gotten at the end of last season. I'm sure things will change at some point. These lines keep getting shuffled because there's no guarantees in this lineup, I think, other than Nick Suzuki 1C. I think that's the guarantee we have. But yeah, so and I know you talked about this on Locked On a little bit, but what are you thinking? Really quickly, I know you guys got a strongly worded mailbag question at one point about Heineman. And that person was right. Honestly, they've been proven right
Yes.
because he has been so dope. I'm
Yeah.
loving having him. Like, he's been so dope. How we'll go back to Line, but how are you feeling behind him now?
Heineman's been fantastic. He
He's
is
been so good.
the perfect bottom six forward for this team. He loves to throw the body. His shot is really, really good, which is, I knew it was good coming into the season, but I think Arpon Bossi posted this in the middle of the game. He's on pace for 21 goals in a very
Insane.
limited role on the Montreal
Yeah.
Canadiens. That's really cool. Like to find a player like that, and again, like he's a guy that they got in a trade from, I believe Calgary in the Tyler Toffoli deal, and that was the second time in his career he had been traded already, and he hadn't even played in the NHL yet. He'd been traded twice as a prospect, and I think it was Kent Hughes who was saying that, yes, you've been traded twice, but it's because teams wanted you
Want
twice.
you,
You were
yeah.
a valuable part of a rebuilding trade. So,
Mhm.
you know, I think that those teams were right. That this is a
Mhm.
valuable NHL forward, and for those who might not have listened to those episodes of Locked On Canadiens, we were trying to pencil in the lineup for when Raphael Harvey-Pinard and Patty Laine came back, and we kind of I came to the justification that Emil Heineman probably is the odd man out, and someone wrote in and said,
I'd
"Well,
like
hold
to
on a second."
I'd like to remind, just to kind of clear your name a little bit, you said that's what you thought would happen.
Yeah,
You said that you had an ideal thought, and then you had one that you thought would be realistic, and that was the
this
Heineman one. Yeah, just would like to
yeah.
like
Oh,
to
thank you.
stand on your defense for a second.
Yeah, but it turns out like Heineman is probably going to be the one that stays. I think it's far more likely we see Joshua Waugh get sent back down to the
Yeah.
American Hockey League and Emil Heineman, because Joshua Waugh, yes, is playing higher in the lineup, but his Heineman's role is far more secure. He's playing second power play minutes. He's playing bottom six minutes, usually third, fourth line. And
Mhm.
I think that's just a testament to his physical game. He's incredibly physical forward.
Yeah. Yep.
So I think I've loved Emil Heineman's game, and I think the fact that they waived Raphael Harvey-Pinard and thankfully he cleared, I think that shows you where the Canadiens' head is. They really
Yep.
like what they're getting from Emil Heineman on a night-to-night
Yep.
basis. So that, if you listen to Locked On Canadiens and I'm wrong about stuff and you want to write in and tell me, and especially be right about it, do it. Like, I'm more than happy to take an L to be like, yeah, this person was right.
Yeah.
Like, so Heineman's been fantastic. I completely agree.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm really enjoying just I I'm really honestly also having Jake Evans back at a position that's appropriate for his skill
Yeah.
is is really nice to see because he is at his most effective when he's at the bottom six. Although I do think he did like a really good job when he was on the second line. A
Yeah.
lot better than I expected. I think that was one of his more Marty's put him up there before, he has. That was one of his more successful stretches of play as 2C. Insane.
Yeah.
But but I'm really liking our kind of bottom six because I think, and this is kind of like something people say, and people say it because it's true, is you need a bottom six that isn't actively hurting you. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? You need a bottom six that can break even. And when your bottom six is doing more than breaking even, you don't mess with that. Heineman really does not want to go to Laval, and he's made it very clear with his play. And he's making the organization make that decision. I'm sure they didn't want to waive Raphael Harvey-Pinard. Again, my mouth, my words. But yeah, I'm sure they didn't want to waive him, and I'm glad that he made it through waivers.
Yeah.
But Heineman made them make that decision, which is really cool to see. It's always really dope to see a player be able to do that, especially because I think a lot of people were at the beginning and after training camp were very much of the opinion that Kapanen should stay
Yeah.
over Heineman. And I'm not saying that they were wrong, considering what kind of play was on ice in that moment. But I think long term, that was the best decision that was made. A, because Kapanen can now play top 6 minutes that he needs back home. And Heineman has proven that he's good. He's good.
Yeah. We're not used to finding these these players that, they're not top level prospects when we get them. we're not used to them coming into the NHL. This is Heineman's first like real stretch as an NHLer. We're not used to them coming in and just being good. Like it's
Yeah.
just not something that happens in this market very often.
Mhm.
Um, I think just from the position of how he got like the fact that he came onto the scene like that, and also just the way that he shoots the puck, I'm getting big Arturi Lehkonen vibes. Not less necessarily like the defensive acumen. I don't think there's a forward on this team that plays
As
defense
the
as a
kind of, yeah.
forward quite like Lehkonen did or does now. But I get the same vibe as rookie Lehkonen. Like that guy scored a ton of goals. I think he scored 20 in his rookie season. They went to the playoffs that year against the Rangers, and I believe he was their leading scorer in that series. So like that's the
Incredibly
kind of
funny
guy I
again.
kind of yeah, that would every time I think about the teams that he who shall not be named built to put in front of Carey Price, I think I lose a year of my life. Like I
Yeah.
get so angry.
Yeah.
Arturi Lehkonen is great. He should not be your leading scorer in a playoff
Yeah.
series. That's crazy. That means I love Arturi Lehkonen. That means you lost that series.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's not good. So, but anyway, I can't help myself from going back to bad thoughts. The good thoughts are that Emil Heineman rules and that Nick Suzuki is back to being a point per game player again. 24 points
He's
in
so
24
back.
games. He's so back. He's been incredible the last 2 games. I've really enjoyed that return to form for him.
And you know what I really enjoyed? Sorry, just quick reminder, chat. We are going to be taking questions soon. Ian does have to go soon-ish, so we're gonna try to move through this. But yes, as I was saying, what I really liked about, did you see what happened between him and Swayman? I'm not sure if the Bruins
Yeah.
broadcast. Yeah, which
Oh,
is
did they ever? They acted like Swayman got killed. Yeah, it
Oh,
was great.
really? That was really
Yeah.
fun. Because actually, what I saw was Nick very politely reminding a goalie to not do that to him, and then two Bruins kind of jumping him. That's what I saw.
Yeah.
Um, but it's really interesting because even when Nick is like frustrated and mad, he's just like, it was so funny because like if Galley got knocked out like that, he would straight up be in the goalie's face, and Nick was like tap on the pads, like, "Hey, don't do that?" Question
Yeah.
mark.
Yeah,
So
Galley's
I like,
helmet would have come
yeah,
off somehow. Like Nick Suzuki, I don't think his facial expression ever changes unless he scores. When he
yeah.
scores, that's different. But
Or when one of his
if
rookie
he's getting
scores, it's
punched,
really cute. He gets very proud of them. It's really cute.
yeah, he's super stoked. But like when he just gets like attacked, he's like, "Hey, can you stop that?" That's sort of his facial expression that I get from him. It's a nice quality to have as a captain, honestly, that he can still have that high level of compete, but like he doesn't show that he's angry because like
Yeah.
that to me, I think teams will build off that.
Hmm.
When a guy starts filling his diaper, you're sort of like, "Ha, I won, I beat you."
Yeah.
Like that'll never happen with Suzuki.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, I think that's like, he gets criticism for that kind of even-handedness. Uh, I think it's like, I think it's just it comes from a place of like somebody who thinks that this team isn't tough enough, which I don't agree with, by the way, Ian. I'm not sure how you feel about that. We'll circle around to that again. But just
Yeah,
real quick, I do think that like Nick is the right captain, especially for a team that like does have young guys who can get carried away. Again, a lot of these guys are so uh they're just, you know, I don't know, Ian, if you've ever met slash talked to a 20-year-old guy. Uh,
yeah,
so it's like they're human. I'm sure they can get worked up. So when you have a captain who's like, guys, let's like not, especially because Marty is a rather fiery coach. So I think that balance is really well done. You do have an A in Galley, just like absolutely willing to do whatever he needs to do, which again, very funny. You saw him at the goalie, uh,
yeah,
yet again, and it was like, that's Galley. Um,
yeah.
I know goalies hate to see that man coming. So yeah, how do you I also saw some comments about how they're just not big enough, which I just think it's something that like is just lazy analysis.
I do too, because I also just think it's frankly wrong.
Mhm.
Like Kirby Doc is 6'4", Juraj Slavkovsky is 6'4", Patty Line is 6'4". Their
Mhm.
defense is big. Like, yes, they have Lane Hudson, but I think people act like because Lane Hudson is small, the rest of the team gets smaller. That's not how this works. Like they're plenty big.
Yeah.
Josh Anderson, 6'4". I think Yoel Armia is 6'4". Like these are big
Big
players.
boys,
They don't
yeah.
have Nick Suzuki, I think, is 6'1". He's a shade over 6 feet, maybe.
He's
Um,
5'11", but he's
well, he'll
thick.
probably put
He's
6 foot on
built.
his driver's license.
I mean, listen, no, that's the official NHL rosters kind of reading. So I am assuming he's actually shorter than that. I'm assuming 5'11" is what he puts on his license. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think
Yeah, I can't bring myself to believe that Nick Suzuki plays small.
no.
Even Cole Caufield, for the size that he is, does not play small. He
Hmm.
does not shy away from contact. He
Hmm.
goes to the most populated areas on the ice to score goals.
Hmm.
You know, this idea that they're not doing well because they're small is just, I completely agree with you. It's lazy.
Hmm.
I don't watch the games. And my whole takeaway from this season is to watch the damn game.
Hmm.
We've been getting so much analysis and thoughts from people who it's very clear that they just don't watch these games.
Yeah.
You know, the Toronto radio guys, Tay and Lane Hudson should go to the American Hockey League. Watch the damn game. You're not paying attention.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
like I cannot obviously like that comes off as like an eye test versus analytics debate, which it's not. I embrace both of those things. But the takes that come out of oftentimes mainstream media is insane. Which is
Yeah.
why something like and I'll plug Game Over here, which is why Game Over is so important.
Thank you.
Like because all of these markets get people who as a matter of fact, watched the
Watch the
entire
game.
game
Yeah.
and formulated thoughts over the course
Yeah.
of the game. Like
Even if I don't
this
want to,
matters.
guys. Some days I really,
Yeah,
some games I really don't want to. I'm on
no,
Twitter. I'm on Blue Sky saying, I'm getting paid for this, guys. What's your excuse for watching this?
we're in the same boat. We can commiserate on that at the very least. Yeah, watch the damn games is what I take away from this year so far. A lot of people just clearly aren't, and they're making thoughts about the Canadiens. If you're saying this team's too small, that's why they're losing, watch the damn game. I don't believe that that's why they're losing games. I
Yeah.
don't think anybody believes that's why they're losing
Yeah.
games.
The Slav discourse too. Slav is I do think like the narrative about him getting frustrated, it was truer and truer near
Yeah,
the
yeah,
near the before he kind of popped off, and I do think he's popped off. I do think the last two games have been improvements on improvements. But it's it's just such a it's so clear again when you just don't have people. Listen, I get it. You can't be everywhere all at once all the time. But if you're going to be an quote unquote expert, at least put in a good effort. At least talk to people who are watching the game. Read the athletic articles. Like it just feels like it's so. One thing I did appreciate that I think Elliot Friedman pointed out this in one of the intermissions was, which I think uh he kind of he mentioned that like Nick Suzuki for his standards looks fiery, and this is the intermission between the second and the third game, the second period and the third period, that sandwiched intermission. um and I was like, thank you, because I think a lot of people kind of take the more margins Habs fans who are saying that Nick just isn't a good captain or isn't whatever, doesn't care, etc., etc. And then those are picked up by fan bases who already don't like us. You know what I mean? And
yeah,
then it's like amplified. You want to believe the worst about a fan base you don't like. You genuinely do. Like it is just what it is.
yeah.
Sports are very tribal. It's fine. Uh, so I just really appreciated the kind of acknowledgement of that, because I think like I just really hate the false narratives. I think there's the Slav narrative that was really bothering me.
Yeah.
There's the Nick narrative that bothers me, I think just generally across the board. And then a Hudson narrative that's bothering me. So I genuinely think this is just one of those moments where like you just gotta consume alternate content and just mute the intermissions. Like that is what it is. Um,
Yep.
yeah, I really did. So speaking of physicality, I thought that this was one of the first games this season that I saw that like Caufield got like bullied off the puck a little bit, like a few
Hmm.
times. I saw that a lot in the second period and the first.
Still scored twice.
Which exactly.
Doesn't
He got
matter.
it. Yeah, it was rough for him. And then the third period, I was like, fine, I'll make it work. It's funny because like I just I think that like, and I've seen a lot of analysts say this is like part of what makes Hudson so good is his size.
Yeah.
It's a positive for him. Um, so yeah, I to kind of like kind of wrap up this discussion. The Habs are not small. Nick Suzuki rocks. He's back. Cole's back. And we're excited for Line. That's the last thing. Um, so Ian does have to go, so I'm just gonna take one question. So I'm just gonna look in the chat. This is not a question, but somebody Trinka says what I wouldn't give for a Nick Suzuki pat on the head when I've done a good job, and I get it. I think like that's the kind of captain that you want to perform for. So MFM asks, how do the Habs build from this weekend's performance? Ian, what do you think?
Well, I think they can take a lot away from the Rangers game. I thought they were far and away the better team in that game, and they got screwed by officiating and the band Creed, who had a concert there the night before, and the ice was completely terrible. So thanks to Creed for that one. Didn't think I'd be chalking up a Canadiens loss to Creed. But I think that they just need to keep doing what they're doing in a lot of respects. I think that in this game, they generated 29 shots on goal, which doesn't sound like much, but that's
But it is
way
for the
more than they
Habs.
usually get.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're on the way up. I
Yeah.
thought they generated a ton against the Rangers, and they really didn't give up much of quality. The Rangers scored on a lot of wrist shots from just inside the blue line.
Mm-hmm.
So I
A lot
think
of power
they need to
plays,
just,
which were
yeah,
questionable.
dubious. I thought their special teams let them down in Boston. Their power play was over, and it gave up a goal. So negative on the power play, negative on the penalty kill. Like it was not a great game there. I think they're headed home next week. I think that's going to cure a lot. What ails them is to get home, get in front of those fans, and try to string together some games. Their opponents in the beginning of December are not very strong, so they have the
Yeah.
opportunity to claw themselves back into this. That's not to say I expect them at the end of December to be near a playoff spot, but just if they can string together 3 wins at any point this season, it's
That'd
a
be dope.
positive. They have not been able to do that in forever. So that's sort of where I'm at. I'm not
Yeah.
make the playoffs. Let's get on a win streak for a little bit.
Yeah.
Let's go a little while without losing a game. That would be really great.
Yeah. I saw like a debate. I can't remember where. Hyperdrive actually. Great show, guys. About what constitutes a win streak. How many games is a win streak? And at this point, I'll take 3 for the Habs specifically. I'll take 3, man. I would agree with you. Build a lot on the Rangers game. Build on the scrappiness of this game in terms of build on the never give up kind of attitude of this game. I really, really like that.
Yeah.
I feel like there's been a lot of times where we've seen them go down and just kind of be like, well, that's it. I mean, I think part of that is that like at one point they just hadn't won a game when they'd been scored on first, which Ian would tweet that every single time, and I'd be like, this time they're gonna break it. And then they didn't until they did. So good for them. So I think just like building on that, building on kind of the doggedness of that, building on, and I know they had penalty, like I know the penalty kind of stats look like way up because of that Rangers game, but I do think overall they were pretty disciplined. And I think that was a problem going into this kind of little streak is they've been not disciplined and earned the penalties they were getting. So I think they've been disciplined. I like that. And build on not playing Primeau. Build on there's no back-to-backs. Play Monty. That's unfortunately seems to be a part of the solution. So
yeah, no, you're not wrong. They have a stretch here where they can ride Montembeault for a little bit.
Yeah.
So if you're looking for silver linings, look at the schedule and maybe take a sigh of relief.
Yeah. Did you think that put him in at any point? I thought they might this game.
I kind of thought in the second period we would have started with Montembeault. There was I thought it was about 50-50. Like it could have if Montembeault was there, I wouldn't have been surprised, and I wasn't surprised that Primeau still started. I think if he gave up that 4th goal in any other way other than a shorthanded breakaway, they would have yanked him. But you can't pull a goalie after that. Like it's not his fault that Mike Matheson just said, "Here you go," and gave Charlie McAvoy a breakaway. But I'm
That's
kind of glad
still
they
so
gave Sam
funny.
the rest.
Yeah, me too. And guys, if you haven't seen it, that whole scramble that was in front of the goal with Kirby right there near the end of the second period. If you follow me on Twitter or Blue Sky, I will tweet about it so you can just see because it is a wonderful moment from this game. It's a slow-mo motion of Kirby like windmilling to try to I don't even know what he was doing, but it was the funniest fall I've ever seen. Straight up windmilling, and it was like that was just like, okay, maybe this game was worth it for that.
Yeah.
Ian, do you want to plug where people can find you?
Yeah, I'm at maybe it's Ian just about everywhere. So come follow me there. Follow Locked On Canadians. We're Locked On Canadians just about everywhere as well. Daily show on the Montreal Canadiens 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. We are very responsive with our audience. We do a mailbag once a week, so you guys can send in questions. Available everywhere podcasts are available, and on YouTube. So if you would like to see this lovely painting of Ken Dryden's mask more often, you can follow us on YouTube. And
It's got a great
we're there.
background, guys. Great background.
I do my best. I try to create something over here. That's what we try to do, right?
Yep. Yeah, and also, guys, for the mailbag, they will listen to you and they will admit if if they're wrong, which I think is something that people don't do very often. So it's a refreshing thing. I will put all of Ian's information as well as Locked On Canadians information in the description. You can find me on Blue Sky at Line Composition. That's Line COMP. I shouldn't have done this. Line composition, I'll put it in the I'll put it in the description. You can follow me on there, and I will. You can follow me on Twitter at K_imw, and I'll be on with Andrew for the next game on Tuesday. And I will see you guys. So thanks for tuning in. Be sure to like if you haven't yet, subscribe, and thank you. Go watch Locked On. It's a great podcast. So thank you.